Welcome to the Otherworlds, where we talk to authors of fantasy, supernatural, and paranormal stories. Let's open the portal and meet our guest. Hello, my name is Sandra Dan, and I am joined today by Emma Hamm. Emma Hamm is the USA Today bestselling author of over 20 novels. She has multiple series, including the Dragon of Umbra series, the Deep Water series, and on August 5th, Emma's latest novel, The Deathless One, will hit store shelves. It is the first book in a new series, the Gravesinger series, and Emma visits the Otherworlds today to tell us a little bit more about this book. Welcome to the Otherworlds.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Oh, thanks so much for being here. It's always fun to talk to people before the book comes out. And of course, this episode will run right after your book comes out. So I'm just wondering in the lead up to the release day, do you do you find that after so many novels that it's still just as nerve-wracking as ever, or is it pretty smooth for you now?
I mean, yes and no. I think every book is always like you get nervous just because it's a new baby that's out in the world and people get to see it and you hope that they love it as much as you do. But I do think that the longer you're in the business, I've been doing this for 9 years now, so it is like not the same kind of nerves as day one when I just didn't know what people were going to do. Now I kind of know what to expect. So at least that anxiety is it's gone. But yeah, there's always a bit of a nerve when somebody else is getting your book for the first time and it's different than anything you've written before or a different series. So it's cool to have people to have it, but yeah, I am just like, please like it.
Now, do you have a release day ritual that you follow when your books come out?
No, I'm horrible about that. I'm a workaholic, definitely for sure. So as soon as a book is done, I'm right into the next one or editing already another one. So I don't really give myself much time to celebrate or anything like that. I'll give myself a little treat like a Lego set or something.
Hey, a Lego set. That is a cool treat to get.
It is.
Do you find that relaxing?
I do, yeah. And it's just like a nice repetitive motion that's like really relaxing. And like last month, I had to buy a much larger set than I was expecting because they had Jane Austen as like if you spend over $150, you got this little like book nook that goes on your shelf and it's Jane Austen. And I was like, well, I have to spend $150 to get that.
Yeah, twist your arm, right? Oh, that's
Yeah.
you must have a very impressive collection then.
Unfortunately, yes, I do.
Well, that's well then you I don't know, you might have already answered my first question, official question about the book, or book related, because in so we're going to find out now, because in the book you describe Jessamines laboratory, and you say there were all manner of strange findings covered her walls, mostly bugs and beetles in jars, but a few lovelier specimens as well, like a man's right toe she kept over her workstation. So I was going to ask you what the oddest thing in your office is.
Oh gosh. I have a lot of oddities in my office. So I do have a lot of bugs, and I have a death's head moth, which is like my prized collection. It's a beautiful moth if you ever have any chance to look at them. They're yellow, but they have an actual skull on their abdomen. It looks like a human skull. Very weird. But I don't know. My dad has gone to Tanzania a few times, so I do have some Tanzanian masks. Probably the weirdest one, they have like a gourd that the Maasai will use when they're traveling with their herd of cattle from like one side of Tanzania to the other. And that's the gourd that they mix the blood and milk in. They drink that. If you're visiting, don't drink that. We can't, our systems are not prepared to be drinking raw blood from an animal that's not even on our continent. Um, but I do have that, and it is the gourd that they used during the trip that my dad was on. So it has had like cow's milk and blood in it. Um, that's probably the weirdest one that I have. I do have an owl too. I have a taxidermied owl. So
Wow, you have a really diverse collection then.
yeah, a little bit from everywhere. I have a hagstone from Scotland. Yeah, I try to get something culty a little bit everywhere I go.
You travel a lot then?
Yeah, yeah. I like to travel. I haven't been international for a while. Life has gotten in the way, but I'm back on the international travel this year.
Oh, are you? Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
So, where have you headed to? Or can you say?
Uh, my honeymoon. Yeah.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, we're heading to the Maldives, which is a whole trip story and a half that I won't get into, but we are going to the Maldives just for a little bit of relaxation, and then who knows where we'll go next? Japan. I think Japan is the next one.
Japan's lovely. So, yeah, that's wonderful. Well, yeah, I've traveled a fair bit, and I always find that, wherever you go, there's just so many interesting things for you to discover that you would miss out on if you never went there. And even reading a book doesn't really give you the same kind of experience as actually, seeing and breathing the air and talking to people. So it's a wonderful experience. So, um, just shifting gears a little bit, I was reading some question and answers that you did on Goodreads, and you had a question um, from a reader in which you responded to them about your studies. And you said that you studied new media in college. And I was wondering if you could explain a little bit more about what specifically new media covers.
It is nothing and everything. So it is kind of an amalgamation of a major from photography to film studies, coding, website design, graphic design. It's like a taste of everything so that it's the idea is to set you up for a master's of something. I went to school not really sure what I want to do. I thought I wanted to get into film studies. So I started doing special effects prosthetics when I was in high school. And so I've made multiple swimmable mermaid tails. I've done blood rigs. I've done like the big crazy foam latex masks. We built our own oven because foam latex to heat up gives off a ton of ammonia. So I couldn't do that in my parents' house. So we built an oven. Um, wasn't going to kill anybody in the house accidentally. But yeah, so I went from that to realizing I didn't really want to live in California, and that's kind of where you have to live if you're doing special effects like that. So I thought maybe I just wanted to do film studies. And at my college that I went to, film studies was really under the umbrella of new media. So I have a minor in film and a major in new media. And just sort of went from there. I ended up using the graphic design portion a lot more after I left college, and then ended up in medical claims for a good long time. And then, yeah, started publishing finally when I was just like on a dare from a friend who was like, "You probably couldn't write a book." And I was like, "I'm pretty sure I could write a book." And the rest is history.
There you go. Well, I mean, it's actually quite fascinating everything that new media covers. And it must actually, I would imagine that it helps you actually a lot as an author. Do you find yourself doing
Yeah,
a
I
lot?
mean, I have a lot of Photoshop skills that I wouldn't otherwise have had. I'm rusty on everything else as far as coding, or we did a lot of like the film stuff with Adobe After Effects and Premiere. I used to be able to animate things. I haven't used that in a very long time. But yeah, new media definitely was helpful as far as knowing how to get into programs or like typography. I do a lot just by myself because I still have those skills to be able to do that. And creating anything for my social media, that's all on me. Other than the photographs, I don't take the photographs. I'm not good at photography.
Really? Oh, so you're good at film, but not photography?
Yes. Moving is fine. Still can't figure out. Brain doesn't work that way.
Yeah, well, I mean, it is a distinct difference, and I think
Yeah.
that's one of the things that people don't realize. Like, there's a real art to filming in motion, and that's I'm a klutz. I don't know if that's why that trips me up.
Yeah. I like it because you can add sound. Like film, a lot of emotion comes from the sound that you are using. So that helps a lot where I can't add a sound to a photograph.
Yeah, it doesn't really have the same impact. So
Mhm.
yeah. So because of your interest in film, has that actually like do you like TikTok and doing reels because of that, or does it feel too much like work?
Sometimes I think it depends, especially with TikTok and when it comes to marketing books. It's not it that I swear the stuff you spend the most time on gets the least views. And then something where you're like, I just got out of a shower with a towel on my head and I'm just gonna really quick film myself for 7 seconds and then put words over it does a million times better. So there's a part of me that like, yeah, I want to put a lot of effort into making these like really beautifully filmed TikToks, but at the end of the day, it really the ones that do better are the ones that I'm like, this took me 5 seconds, done.
Yeah, I can't figure TikTok out. So
Yep.
I hear you on that because, I'll whatever I spend the most amount of time on doesn't seem to really have much in terms of payoff. But
Yep.
hey, if it's something I really wanted to say, then I guess I've gotten it off my chest or whatever.
Yes.
So there's that. So, and my apologies if you're hearing my dog bark. I don't know why she's
Not
barking,
at
but
all.
at least it's only one of them right now. Um, so veering back to the book a little bit here, you actually mentioned in the book, so I guess to give a little bit of background, I mean, Jessamine is a princess and a grave singer, but she doesn't know she's a grave singer, and that's going to be part of her learning curve in this. But it actually says in the book, because you're creating this whole lore about grave singers, and I wondered um, what that was like for you. Like with this book, were you drawn in by this concept of the grave singers as witches, like they're a different type of witch, or were you more drawn into the story of the Deathless One when you started with it?
Um, Probably a little bit of both. I mean, I think the Deathless One, his story is really compelling for me to write. I have written a lot of alpha heroes before, and I didn't want to do it in this one. I kind of wanted to take a more delicate approach to him. I think we're very used to seeing male characters that are really big and strong and have anger issues and like they fight all the time, and we're really not used to a male character who has very deep emotional trauma that he is also working through and has never been given the space to be able to acknowledge that what has happened to him was wrong. So I have a very soft spot for him, and writing him was really fun. It's just an untraditional male character to be able to bring to life. But the witchcraft aspect of it is also very near and dear to my heart. I love witchcraft. I've done a lot of research on it. I have so many books. Um, and I do think that it's just a deeply powerful part of being a woman is that we have been called witches so many times in so many cultures across the entire planet. There's not a culture who has not burned women for suspecting them of some kind of magic. So to be able to take that and kind of twist it into different types of witches that exist everywhere is really fun as well. And yeah, the Gravesingers are a little different from the rest of the witches. They're not as powerful. I also thought that was more fun to do. I'm pretty tired of reading the most powerful person on the planet who meets the most powerful person on the planet. So I wanted to give them both something that trips them up a lot rather than winning all the time.
Well, it's interesting you say that because one of the things that comes up in the book is that grave singers aren't allowed to keep any kind of tomb or grimoire. They're not uh pardon me, they're not allowed to write anything down in terms of their rituals, their history, their customs, what have you, right? It's all would all be passed orally. But on the flip side, there are some things written down in the book that are referred to, and they present interesting issues eventually in the story. And so I found myself wondering, like, um, what do you think the biggest risk is? Because like it was interesting to me. Like on the one hand, you think, oh, they're not writing anything down, so it can't be used against them. But then on the other, when you talk about vulnerability, it makes Jessamine vulnerable because it's hard for her to learn. There's nobody to teach her.
Yeah.
And on the flip side, there are some things written down that bad people can use against them. And so so there, did you do that deliberately because you wanted to create vulnerabilities for them? And if it was up to you, would you write it down or not write it down?
So I really wanted to play with the idea of the only thing she knows about herself, even before being a witch, but now being a grave singer, is what other people have told her she is. So there is no one to be like, I have been in the same position as you. This is what it felt like. And instead, it's just, I have no idea who wrote this, but they say I'm this, so I must be. And that's like such a deep part of the book is that she just doesn't know who she is. And that it was, I think, something that a lot of women feel is we're told who we are our entire life. And we see that on even when we're kids just walking by a store. It's like, well, you're supposed to look like this little girl in this store with this American Girl doll, and you're supposed to like dolls, and you're supposed to like this clothing, and you're supposed to play with this toy. And if you're not, then you don't see any other examples of little girls. You don't see any little girl playing with a like a Tonka truck. It just, you don't see it places. So I think for me, that was like the deepest part of this book was to allow her to figure out who she is in her entirety. So if it was up to me, I would personally want something written down from someone, but also this is 200 years after the last one has been killed, so there's not a chance for that to happen. But I do think also deeply, I believe that there is a lot of female history that has just been completely erased that we will never know. I mean, even look at like Viking burial grounds. We pull them up and we're like, there you go. Like this person was a really renowned Viking. Look at what they were buried with. Clearly, that was a man. And then 75 years later, we look at the bones again. And we're, oh no, that was a woman buried in honor. But for 75 years, we were like, had to be a dude. We're gonna name her this.
Yeah.
So,
No, you're right on the money about that. And that probably hints to the dedication in the front of the book because you're hinting at the all the ways that women have been categorized, blamed, judged, mistreated, wronged, and misunderstood for centuries. So,
mhm.
yeah, and it's interesting that you mentioned this about Jessamine Bean's curve is that she has a huge learning curve in the book, a huge learning journey on multiple levels. She's young, she's naive, she's sheltered. She doesn't even understand what's going on in her country because she's grown up in the palace and been misinformed of
Mhm.
and so everything everywhere is sort of a revelation to her, and yet she is a character who is finding her strengths. And I wondered when you were writing it what you think is most important that she teaches Elric, because I feel that he learns a lot from her despite the fact that he's I don't know exactly how old he is. I don't recall if it said. He's
Right.
really old, like
Yes.
hundreds of years old, maybe thousands.
Yep. Yeah, I think for her and his relationship, for him to realize that there is a person that is in her position, a witch or whatever, who is soft for him. And I think that's something that a lot of men look for, but in a twisted way. I see a lot of relationships, and even in my friends and all of the people that I love and know very well, they'll have this guy who just wants a soft place to land, but for them, that means someone who is just like a yes person rather than someone who will challenge them or just be like, no, I want to hear what you went through and I want to either be that soft person or go to bat for you and say like that's not right. Like and so there's just this very interesting relationship between them where it's not like the usual gender norms of he protects, she shelters, and it's a blend of both. And I think that was really fun to write. And even throughout the series, it's fun to write with the two of them, where he gets to have a soft place, but also someone that will become a shield for him when things get tough, and he gets to be the same for her. So yeah, it was a fun challenge, and I hope I did it well. But
Yeah. No, I'm kind of curious to see where it goes in future books because it is interesting that um like I don't know, I don't know if you think about these things when you're writing, but I started making a 10 list for Elric. You know, he's a 10, but he isn't solid.
right.
You know,
Yeah.
he's a 10, but he wants to kill everyone. You know, he's 10,
Yep.
but he doesn't trust witches, and she's a witch. He's 10, but he's been hurt before.
Right, exactly.
And like that's a very big thing with his character is that he really feels like he's coming from a place of pain. Uh,
Yeah.
Certainly initially and through a lot of the book. And one of the things that it felt to me like for him that was part of that learning curve was learning that it was okay to be vulnerable, that your vulnerability wasn't always something that a person would use against you, but that the right person would respond to your vulnerability and give you the support that you needed. And it
Yeah.
felt to me like that was like a pivotal moment in their relationship in terms of both of them understanding each other. Because initially he's really impatient with her and frustrated, and because he's got what he wants to do, and obviously she's just kind of like, wait a second, I don't really know what's going on here. You know,
Yes.
I'm not sure this is a good thing, and she's
So,
willing to like answer the question that out and piece that out. So like this book feels very much like a growth journey for the two of them, in
yes.
my opinion. So, um, which is, you're right. Like it is very different in the sense that you are giving us um, flawed, vulnerable protagonists who do have some powers and unique capabilities, but I mean, right now, Jessamine doesn't even know you know know what that means or how to use it. Like she's terrible at magic, right? So it's kind of a fun learning curve to think about like all the things that she messed up in Sybil's house.
Yes. Very.
Yeah, and I have to ask about Sybil because, she's she's a peripheral character. And she is important in the story. And and yet I found myself thinking about her like after all of these years, centuries by herself, what keeps Sybil going?
For her, it is a bit of that like fanatic need to have someone. Like I wanted to kind of poke a little bit at that feeling of blind faith because she is someone who has physically seen a god rather than like worshiping something that she's never had literally in the same room with her. But to have seen something like that and know realistically they're not coming back, but to maintain that like love of them and then to compare her to like a couple other characters in the books that I don't want to spoil anything too much, where that like fanaticism almost like twists the message of like, well, I believe in this, but it's been 200 years since I've seen them, so now it kind of serves me, not them. Whereas she is very much true to like, this was who I was 200 years ago. It was who I believed was right. And I will continue to be that person because that was right. And I know it, that it was right. So it was fun to write her because she is just still very like almost at the breaking point where we meet her of like, is this existence even worth continuing at this point? And then to have that opportunity of like, oh, we could bring him back though, and I could get everything back that I used to have is a really fun thing. And I know she's a peripheral character, but she is probably my favorite character in the whole series.
Yeah, I can kind of understand that because, she's also wise, but and so it makes the interactions with her like a lot different because on the one hand, you've got Jessamine who's so young and sheltered. And on the other hand, Sybil's been around and she's seen it all. And, you're not going to fool her quite as quickly. But she's also she's also not pushy. She's,
Yeah.
she's, which is another like lovely attribute with her because like she's very supportive, and informative, but she also keeps her own counsel to a large degree. Like, she's not going to be easily swayed. And and obviously, and I don't want to give too much away either, like there are some characters in this book who have been swayed and influenced, to do things that they might not have otherwise done. And it is sort of interesting to see where everybody's point is, and
Yeah.
that's one of the things that Jessamine was really determined to find out with some of those people is like why they acted the way that they did. And, uh, and yeah, so it's interesting to see, dis- despite everything that Sybil has been through, she's not she doesn't come off as vindictive,
No.
she's just, you know and I think that that's also like a really interesting point about her as a witch because, um without giving anything away, I mean obviously you're touching on how witches are seen and their place in society and what happened to them historically in this world, is all a part of the story. Um and despite all of those things, Sybil seems to still have very much a really good heart and seem to be very committed to her beliefs and her way of life, and isn't like pulled into being vindictive. Whereas Elric sometimes does feel like, he could just be like swept right on down that path and to, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting like dichotomy between the two of them because she is very much like almost like somebody who has healed her trauma and is just like I could live in this like angry spot forever, or I could just let it go and just not let it live with me. Whereas Elric is very much the like he's much older than her. He's seen this cycle happen so many times with humans. He has absolutely zero belief that we can change or will. And is just like, this is the same cycle that happens every single time. Nobody's gonna break the mold. I'm tired of all of you. You're so small and you live such a short amount of time. And I wanted that to still be in him because writing a god is pretty difficult. Um, but he is a young god in comparison to the others. So he's been around less than the other ones that were worshipped. So for him to like still be young, but also be jaded was a fun kind of edge to walk.
Yeah, and I think that readers, no matter where they are in their life, I think that people are going to find somebody who they really relate to because, you know, uh, depending on what people have been through in their lives, people are all in those places where they've either like, really worked through and processed a lot of their trauma and moved past that active anger stage, or they are just in the midst of their trauma and trying to, find their feet and figure out what's going on and cope with it all, or they have been dealing with so much trauma for so long that they hate everyone.
Right, exactly.
So, yeah, everybody will find somebody who they relate to the most. So, I would think.
I would, yeah, I mean, I would hope there's somebody out there that doesn't have trauma, but it seems unlikely.
Yeah, it's well, and but it's interesting to me because, like, I think in this book that it was like such a central theme, um, and 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 I think that so many people are dealing with trauma, and we've actually been really, I think, as a society, as a culture, like really historically bad about dealing with trauma. And reading a book and processing it through the lens of a character gives you just that little degree of space to be able to like maybe start asking yourself some questions or seeing things in yourself and or finding inspiration because this is possible. It's possible to heal. It's possible to learn to love again. And for that not to be scary or not
Right.
to be as scary as you might think that it would be. Like, it's a so it's I think that there's a lot of fun in there. And I mean, obviously Elric is quite a different character, as you've already mentioned. I was wondering out of like because you've written so many male protagonists over the years, in your books. I was wondering which one of your male protagonists is he most similar to? Is there anybody who's got anything
Um,
to do with him?
Yeah, I would say he's probably fairly similar to Deos in the second book of Deepwater, Song of the Abyss. He's also quite a traumatized character. I would say they both took a different way in handling it. Um, Deos is more angry at the world, whereas Elric is more resigned towards just like taking it. Um, but I think both of them have had so much happen to them that they like fracture into two different people. Like there's really only like two different paths you can take, and it would be those two. Um, but like personality wise, he is probably very reminiscent. I wrote way back in 2016 a fairy tale retelling with Celtic mythology. And Bran in The Faceless Woman is very similar. Both of them are like unseelie fae, dark god vibes. I would say that like that book is The Faceless Woman certainly does not handle trauma at all in that kind of conversation very much. But personality wise, they are both very like I'm gonna be really funny and flippant and like whatever, and then okay, now my limit's been reached. I'm not gonna be nice to you anymore. Like just do what I want you to do.
Oh, that sounds like a fun one to read, though. I mean, it kind of moving into a completely different direction, with a character like that. So,
Yeah.
so what about Jessamine? Which of your protagonists would be most similar to her?
Um, Gosh, I don't really know who would be similar to Jessamine. I've never written a princess before. I tend to write characters who are not royal. So yeah, I think she kind of stands on her own. She also was me just hopefully people will like it and understand. I'm sure some people will not like it and understand, but she is my character that makes mistakes a lot. And that is her learning curve of, it's not the fight sequence where she's training and in 2 weeks she's incredible at fighting. It is the man, she just gets hit a lot. Like, really? Oh, she's dead again. Uh, and that's just, I think, realism. And I'm curious to see how people react to that because I know we are, as a culture, very used to the golden one who can fight and can do all of these things versus a very pampered princess who is thrown into the real world, which she thought she knew, but very obviously does not.
Yeah, I thought that it was interesting because she does have that huge learning curve, and and you don't shy away from showing her weaknesses, the things that her mother tried to have her taught, like other languages that she just could not grasp. And it was but in a way it was I found it refreshing because not everybody is good at the same things. And you have created this princess who, yes, may be pampered and spoiled and to a certain degree, and certainly sheltered, but uh, and but she's still in her laboratory with a man's toe
Yeah.
above her
Yeah,
workstation.
she's the weird kid.
Yeah, like, and yeah, and also though, I think that a lot of people sometimes romanticize the idea of royalty uh, and don't really look at the reality of it. But I thought that you did a great job with the reality of the loneliness and isolation. Like she really doesn't have like a friend in the world. You're like, and and so without spoilers, we get just given the events that happen at the very beginning of the book, she's really on her own.
Yep,
And
for the first
um,
time.
Yeah. And so, and I thought that that was really, that was really realistic. And, but also like, because she is the weird kid, she's not the one walking around being all haughty either. Like, well, I
Oh
mean,
no.
there's circumstances too, but like, she's not going like, how dare you mistreat me? Like,
Yeah,
you
no.
know, just like, oh my gosh, I got to get out of here. Like, when something bad happens, which would, makes her far more human and relatable, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and like on that note, there was actually something that Sybil said to her at one point in the book. We all do foolish things for a taste of power, do we not? And
Mhm.
but it's interesting that when Jessamine really thinks about this as the book is progressing, she kind of actually comes to a realization that maybe she's never had power at all in her life up until that point, because all the choices have been made for her, all the expectations have been, pardon me, set out, and she's just been slotted into a role. And so now it's really an interesting discussion that you're having about power, um, because she has to decide what it means to take action, what action she should take, and where the lines are. And she has certain opportunities to just take power for herself, to get revenge for what's happened to her, but she also stops to think about what that would mean for her people. So
Right.
it's a really interesting balance with her. And I also found myself thinking like probably because she grew up in the palace, power doesn't have quite the same lure as it does to somebody who has grown up um, poor and mistreated their entire life. So you
Right. Absolutely.
got that dichotomy going on with some of the characters in the story, which I thought was interesting when you're parsing out their motives.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was really fun to write that because, like, I'm trying not to spoil too much. There is a couple characters in there who were powerless growing up. And I think if I could go back and write it again, I probably would have played with that even more just to like really put them up against each other because at the end of the day, they both were powerless. It was just the state that they were living in. Like one person had consistent food and a place to live and safety, and the other person didn't have that, but neither of them had any power. I mean, there's my favorite scene in the whole book is her realizing she's never picked out her clothes before. Like no one has ever asked her, "What do you want to wear?" And just being asked that almost freezes her because she's like, I don't know. I don't know what I want to wear. I don't know what I want to put on my body. I don't know what fabric I like. I don't know what I even want to look like. I have no idea. And that scene I think is so powerful to like have that moment of like, okay, well now you have permission. Like do what you want for once. And then to like see a character not even know, like just I don't even know how to choose. So that's by far my favorite scene in the whole book.
Oh yeah, and I mean but it speaks to a lot of it just speaks right back to that theme about women and their mistreatment. And we women have been put in boxes and expected you are this, this, and this, and that's all you can be. And so when you're all of a sudden faced with choice, how do you process
Right.
that? And I mean, she has it on multiple levels because there's being a woman, there's also being a princess, where everything in your life has been controlled.
Mhm.
So it's an interesting journey from, a complete controlled environment to complete independence. And there's and there's like such a huge journey for her in terms of adjusting to her situation and the good and the bad that comes with it. So it's quite an adventure. So I just wondered if you are able to tease us up with any hints about book two, when we can expect it, any surprises in store for us?
So book two, I believe, is coming out in March. It is not as far as you might think. I know what the cover looks like. I did a cover reveal on my Instagram. It's beautiful. It's very red. Um, I can say from the story that I wanted to completely flip it to something else because we've seen her flounder a lot, and now we can kind of see her win. So book two is more in her element of what she is used to. So I think that's all. That's probably all I should say. But yeah, we get to see her be the princess and have the confidence and the like chaos of coming out of book one and like knowing like, okay, now I'm fully invested in being this like embracing this darker feminine. And now what can she do with it?
Oh wow, that sounds fascinating. I can't wait to see kind of what happens with her, but also I can't wait to see what happens with Elric in book two because,
Oh yeah.
yeah, not to give anything away, but I sense some changes on the horizon for him, and
Yep. There's definitely like much less rules on him in book one or book two, I should say.
so do you have any other projects that you're working on other than this series right now, or?
Yep, so I do indie publish. If you're into monster romance, that's what I'm known for. So I am doing a troll series right now. I'm calling it Troll Summer. Very, very Nordic inspired, and I also have my Deep Waters series, which I will be doing a fifth book of. So we'll go back under the sea for again more monster romance.
What do you find to be the advantage of switching back and forth between indie and trad?
You're not as alone, which is nice. Indie's very lonely. And I don't mean that in necessarily a bad way. I get to choose my own covers and I get to choose who like what artists I work with and the editor and all of that kind of stuff. But the decision fatigue is tiring. And to be able to work with a team of people who are just as excited as me and who I can have Zoom meetings with and talk about books and all of that has been a really special experience to be able to make these friends who get it. And I do have friends in my indie world as well, but we're all just drowning in what do we make decisions for our own business that making decisions with other people is really hard. So to have people whose only job is like all I do is marketing in being able to just talk with them and be just as excited about books is a nice break.
Yeah, it's lovely to have a support team around you and and not have to worry about scheduling interviews or, let's
Yeah.
let take care of it.
Yeah.
Is nice. Yeah, and also like they're going to be with you like through the three books. So
Yeah.
that's kind of fun because you can look forward to all of those milestones. So, well,
Yes.
thank you so much for taking the time to chat today about the Deathless One. Like I said, I am so curious to see what happens in book two, and I appreciate the teaser, but I'm really also really curious to see what happens with Elric. So I'm going to be looking forward to that. Thank goodness we only have to wait until March. That's wonderful. And congratulations on the release of the Deathless One. I hope that it goes incredibly well for you. And I mean, it looks stunning. It is
Thank you.
absolutely a gorgeous. As soon as I saw this cover, I was just like, "Whoa, I love this cover," and the book just looks fantastic. So it's very exciting.
Thank you. Well, and thank you for having me on the podcast as
Oh,
well.
so much for being here.